first one's a follow-up from last week, one of your articles about vinyl records versus CDs.
All right.
So, title is, why don't 50% of vinyl buyers even own a turntable?
So we're just going right into it today? Just sending it?
Because the price of vinyl has increased 10% since COVID, and that's not including inflation. Okay? It's becoming the ultimate music object, a vinyl record. So they're treating it more like a piece of art, but saying that they can own the music is what they like. They want to display it.
Oh, that's why with the vinyls?
Yes. So I guess the CDs are too small. The vinyls, you got the full album,
Yeah.
the album cover and everything.
Well, now, I didn't realize it, but those vinyls, like, now they actually print the entire art on the album itself. So it's not just a black thing anymore.
Interesting.
So there is a little more to it. But,
Yeah.
anyway.
So that was that article.
Yeah.
It was a
Well, that was
follow-up
a good
to
start
yours.
one. All of mine are basically follow-ups on the bank stuff, but other than that, what else is new? People are always like, hey, tell us more about your week. I was like, I literally just work 24/7. Yeah. I didn't really do too much this week besides the usual.
Busy week coming up.
I told everyone about the mouse. Busy week coming up, yes. Grandma's coming.
Grandma's in town.
Grandma's coming, but the hard part's going to be trying to convince her to do the podcast.
She flies in for one night on the broom.
Yeah. She's always on the go.
And then I get to spend time with her.
Yeah.
Quality time.
Next week's going to be interesting because I don't know how that's going to play out. My week last week was kind of a nightmare because of my sleep schedule after that stupid incident. So, and I couldn't recover. But, yeah, other than that, I don't think I did anything differently this week.
Nope, you did not.
Anything sort of merges together.
Everything just one week rolls into the next after a while.
Oh, but we never gave the update on my uncle's dog. My uncle's dog had her eye taken out.
Happy.
She did well, though.
Yeah, she did.
It kind of confuses people because people don't realize that the dog's name is Happy.
Yeah. Well, and you have to clarify, she had to have it removed because she had a cancer
in her
growth
eye,
on it, and it was getting very large. So the choice was to let it keep growing and then risk having the cancer spread, and she wouldn't be able to see out of the eye anyhow, or removing it and the eye. And, you know, dogs can function with one eye.
Well, from what it sounded like, she couldn't really see out of that eye anyway because of the cancer. So
the cancer and the growth.
Yeah, and the growth of the cancer. So it wasn't like... besides not physically having an eye, I don't know if her life is that much different.
Well, but Happy's had a rough life, right?
She
was a sheltered dog. She was rescued by Uncle and his wife and aunt, and they did a lot for her. She has Cushing's disease. She's had also skin issues, but she was abused beforehand, so she finally hit pay dirt, and now she's got all these issues, but she's doing well, which is good. And
she's like a little.
Care of her.
She's the funniest thing to look at because she's like a cross between a Shih Tzu and a bulldog.
Yeah, well, you have to post a picture of her.
I do. I have to. Okay. She's got this wide stance, like she's defending the house, but she's all of 5 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious. So we're hoping we get her a little pirate's eye patch.
Yeah, I mean the eye looks terrible now because of that surgery.
She looks like she got in a bar fight.
But she was eating right away and doing her thing. So she's a fighter. She's
That's what. Oh yeah, she's like the Rocky Balboa of dogs.
Right.
So
she doesn't quit.
She does not quit. But all right, let's just get into it. We got a lot this week, and it's already late because we just finished the UFC fights at 8:30. Usually we record these at 7. So we're a little tired, and I didn't have coffee. So, and I still got my fish food waiting for me. So I'm like, let's wrap this up.
Oh, there's the motivation. That's where we go fast.
Gotta go fast.
Nobody wants to see that on the podcast.
Yeah. That, and we also want to. I realized that 2 hours for retention. Kids can't do 2 hours anymore.
I don't think I can anymore.
Yeah. So unless we're Joe Rogan and it's all comedians, it's tough. So.
Or I'm stuck in a car driving. Multiple hours.
Yeah. So we'll go right into it. So this is kind of a multi-article one for me, which is in other words, they kind of chain together. So Liz Cleman, I don't know how you pronounce that, but how safe is Clayman? It is Clayman.
Fox News?
Okay. I believe so.
Clayman.
How safe is your bank? A week of plunging markets, $1 million rescues, bailouts. So this is basically the aftermath of SVB. So last week we talked about what happened, the whole thing. Right. My mom went through it. Since then, all the banks got bailed out. Right, I forget how many billions of dollars, or the FTC that SVB did.
Yes.
Right now, it's taken over by the feds. The feds have it now; they're trying to sell it. So, basically, the aftermath is like, "Hey, can you trust your money?" And now they're going through all the banks, like the big banks, and seeing how many minor bank runs there are, of how many people are scared of pulling their money out. So.
Well, Janet Yellen was on. She's the head of the, what is she? The Treasury Secretary. And she came on and basically said, when grilled by the committee, the House committee, that the scary part of this whole thing, and it keeps shaking out, I shouldn't say scary, but the reality is, the federal government has said we will back these larger banks. Sure. She would not agree to backing smaller banks through the FDIC and through all these loan programs they created to help the SVB customers.
Right.
And that's a real problem, because now, why would I keep my money in a small regional bank if I have only $250,000? I could move it to an SVB or one that is still solvent, a Bank of America or JP Morgan Chase, and I'll get it 100%. So she's basically, or the administration is basically, killing small banks,
the small
region banks.
It's funny how again, this is a left or right thing, where the left goes, oh man, we want to take down these big companies, these big 1% corporations, and then they bail out a huge 1% bank basically, right. And then let the smaller banks die. Right. It's the same.
Right. Well, and plus we were talking about this earlier. What a lot of people don't realize is, when you're a small business, other than a startup in Silicon Valley, you need to get some money, seed money, to start your business. Say it's a store and you need $5,000 or $10,000. That's small potatoes. You don't usually go to an SVB or maybe Bank of America, but whatever. They probably not going to lend it to you because you probably don't have much to back it up. But that was the business of smaller regional banks. Many of your listeners probably have these small banks, town banks, right?
Yep.
Or state, local ones. That was their business. That's how they made money, and that's how they supported small businesses. Well, if they don't exist anymore, small businesses aren't going to be able to get capital to start up. So you're crushing what is probably one of the biggest employers in our country.
Right.
So the current federal government is very much into, for lack of a better words, they want the government to control as many businesses as possible. Right. They think that's how you keep the economy going. So by crushing smaller banks and smaller businesses, who fills that void? Well, government will give you the money, but now you technically work for the government. Right. So anyhow, that's a big problem. So we've nationalized the banking system in a matter of a week.
Yeah, basically. Okay? And it's going to keep moving that way. So the only thing that propels this is if you start seeing more bank runs in other, like, bigger banks and all over the country. That's how you propel this, which we don't want. So the other thing,
we've already established, or many people have established, this is the argument.
Go ahead.
SVB could have failed.
Oh yeah.
So for all the people crying about how it's too big to fail, we keep hearing that over and over again.
I don't know if anyone was saying it was too big to fail.
Yes, that's why we bailed them out. Yes, because they were too big to fail. Oh my gosh, we can't let all these businesses. That's why the FDIC backed it up, and then you had all these other lending programs that the federal government put in.
Right.
But meanwhile, the people that owns SVB,
But isn't that the definition of it did fail? So it's not too big to fail, and they got bailed out.
Well, they're getting bailed out. In other words, all their customers.
Right, but they still failed. They still failed the bank. The bank still failed.
But it's still going in terms that they're getting their deposits.
But it's not owned right now. It's actually not called SVB anymore. It's called I think it's SVB Regional Bank. So they changed the name probably for LLC purposes, but they're trying to find a seller. Sounds like they're going to the Saudi Arabians for it. Like they want the money. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Sounds like they it's not finalized yet, but it sounds like the Saudi Arabians are going to bail that bank out.
But then when you throw into the mix that we basically bailed out CCP companies, communist companies that were invested in there. Yeah. I mean, this is the unraveling.
Right. There's a lot of Chinese companies that were in there. So, yeah. But I think the weirdest part is the fact that a couple days before the bank failed, they gave bonuses to all the employees.
Yes, and they pledged a huge portion of money to BLM.
And then what ended up happening is someone knew that they were going to get bailed out, I have to believe, and that's why they said bonuses to everyone to get rid of the money.
Well, as you recall, last week we talked about it. This was just the start of the story.
Right.
This is going to unravel over the next few months. There will be probably House discussions about what actually happened.
I think they already started some. Right. I think they're meeting in Switzerland right now.
Right. And if more banks start to fail, now we're going to have...
I think
we're going to have some issues with, Okay, how far do you take it? And that's why they had this meeting and said, are you going to bail out the smaller banks? Like, what's the cutoff? Because it's not good for a country to just have 4 or 5 large banks. Now, we also know that this administration signed an executive order to move us to digital currency. Well, isn't it convenient that now the federal government is controlling some of the larger banks?
Right.
A lot of things, coincidence.
There's a lot of things slipping together. Yeah.
I don't know. Is it a coincidence? Who
so
knows?
The second part of this is I'm going to take over a little bit here because I got like a slew of articles that kind of coincide together. So now all the Bitcoin billionaires are back. So the ones that were plummeting money because now, because of this crash, people were like, oh, we can't trust money anymore. It's time to start looking back into the cryptocurrencies. Right. So a bunch of cryptocurrencies just skyrocketed. Not something like Bitcoin. I'm sure Bitcoin's up right now. If I was to check, I'm sure it's positive, but or like it's definitely risen in the last 2 weeks. But they are assuming this has a good what's the word it's looking for? Like these people here are pretty good at predicting on this website. They say Bitcoin will reach probably around $1 million amid major move from central banks. Again, it's not going to be $1 million a coin, but it will be an astronomically high price after a situation like this. I would not be surprised if by the end of the summer we see Bitcoin at what's it at right now? Probably 19.
I have no idea. 20. I don't check the.
I'm going to say market. But. Ready? Mark this down. This is how your boys. Okay. I'm like an oracle. Ready? I'm gonna say 25,000 a coin by the end. Let me look that one up. I do like how we both have Mac. I think it was at 60 at some point. Bitcoin at its highest.
Just Kenny when we need them.
Yeah. Bitcoin right now.
At 27,000.
Oh, it's at 27,000 right now a coin.
That's what it says.
Okay, so I take back what I said. The oracle prophecy's coming to me. I'm gonna say it's gonna go up to 30. I'm gonna say it's gonna go up to 33 by the end of the summer. Boom. Write it down, kids.
This is it's up 60% so far this year.
Yeah, hold on. Bitcoin at its
which is interesting because that Silvergate bank crashed.
Yeah, so back in November 2021, it was 65,000 a coin.
Oh.
So it was in the 60s at one point. But that's because everyone was so obsessed with it at the time where that was when Bitcoin just started.
Yeah, that's a tough one because...
It's a weird one. It's not backed by anything. So
no, but I'm saying even right now with the market the way it is, it's very hard to predict that far.
I don't see Bitcoin going anywhere near $1 million until, way past I'm dead.
From 30-something thousand? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way it's ever going to go that high.
They'll regulate the shit out of it.
Yeah, before it even gets to that.
Please.
$1 million a coin and this guy's sitting on
forget it.
100,000 Bitcoins right now?
Way.
Yeah, okay.
It's not going to happen.
When that's like the fastest way of people being more or having more money than governments.
Well, Venezuela is now at 100% inflation. So, yeah, it could go to $1 million and it'll be worth enough to buy a loaf of bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. So it's all relative if we don't figure out the economy and straighten things out in terms of inflation and interest rate. So, anyhow.
Yeah. So, all these, listen, I'm not going to give financial advice.
Yeah.
That's not me. Yeah. But, like, I can understand why everyone right now is pushing the cryptocurrencies because, I mean, it's a matter of not whether the cryptocurrency is good or not. It's a matter of having non-tangible money just in case something like SVB happens, which again, I don't expect this to happen often. That was a very weird bank in the sense of I literally
have heard of people, friends of friends, who have pulled all their money out of the bank.
That's
and
insane.
Have it in a safety deposit box.
How do you manage that?
Well,
like how do you
get it in large bills and you put it in a safety deposit box. Yeah, this is the mentality.
I can see Mr. Greta doing that.
No names.
No names. No,
but I'm
he wouldn't.
Friends of friends, not my friends, but friends of friends. And that's how you get these bank runs.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they're wrong. Who am I to say? Maybe their local bank is teetering on the edge. I don't know. But
I think the fear is more so the fact that we, the people, can technically screw the banks over, which, again, down with the banks. That's not necessarily the right answer in this situation. You know, you don't really want bank runs.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so yeah, it's just a bad idea because you're shutting down a whole part of our society that even if you like it or not, It has to be there. We need it for certain
investors
reasons.
telling people you should go out and get your money out of the bank, or you should definitely go move your balances.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Peter Thiel.
It's Thiel. No, he suggested ahead of time because he looked at what was going on. More people should have paid attention to what he was doing. That's the difference.
But people are okay. So then maybe I've heard the articles differently depending on where you've heard them. But I heard that a lot of the reason for the crash was because Peter Thiel was like, "Yo, let's get out of this."
Yeah, but he didn't do it and announced everybody should get out. He did it as a regular investor, I think a week or so before. So they were trying to point the finger at him. You know, he always
is that
blamed the
how?
smart kid, right? Oh, he must have known something. The smart kid knew. Shame on him for not sharing it. Well, he didn't hide it. The balance sheets have been out there. Now, all of a sudden, like I said, this thing unravels. People are now posting what was public information about SVB, posting their spreads, and you're seeing it was a disaster in the making. So that's why, you know, people who are paying attention, investors like a Peter Thiel, they watch this stuff.
Right.
The guy from Shark Tank came out and gave a
That's
blistering.
you're talking about
what's his name?
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
Does the
He hit the nail on the head. I don't know him that well, but he hit the nail on the head. You've nationalized banking. You can't. It's a recipe for disaster because everyone's just going to put their money in these bigger banks. All the smaller ones are going to be crushed, and that affects your economy.
Yeah.
So
and now, to your point, then you monopolize the banks in the sense of all the big banks have all the power. You've given them all the power.
Right,
yeah.
right. Couple that with the fact that they've been doing some inappropriate things, in my opinion, with the FBI over the years about their clients this past couple of years. So you're giving them a hell of a lot of control, and that's never good. You're centralizing money, centralizing a lot of things. But I understand why people would be nervous about it, especially if they don't understand like how the insurance works, the FDIC insurance, that how many what they are insured up to, and they panic. I don't blame them.
Right. I guess the takeaway from this is kind of like, one, don't take all your money out of banks just because everyone else is doing it. But also, like, maybe start looking at the cryptocurrencies, just like a part of your finances are in there. Right. And even though it's going to fluctuate, it's better than potentially losing all of it.
I wouldn't tell people to do.
I'm going to assume, I'm just saying you might want to start looking at those options in the sense.
Well, in general, with anything with money, you should always diversify.
Yep.
Know the maximum limits and spread it around. Right. It's a great way of maximizing your returns. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is true.
Put it all in crypto. Financial advice for Pancake.
I don't know.
Put it all in Bitcoin.
Let me do the disclaimer.
Well, this is going to move on.
Me to say. Pancake
Our PR team. But that kind of leads into the next topic, which I think is actually an interesting debate. So, Coffeezilla, the one that he was just on Rogan, did a fantastic interview on Rogan. He's been going through all the FTX stuff, unraveling everything, and he just posted a video called YouTubers Get Sued for $1 billion.
Okay.
So this is a follow-up to the FTX stuff, right? Okay. So FTX crashes, and basically we're seeing all these YouTubers that promoted it, said, hey, you should look into it, and all the lives that have basically been ruined by FTX.
Oh, just like Tom Brady, Giselle, and the celebrities that did it. Okay.
Right. So the big question that Coffeezilla asks is, are the influencers, these financial influencers, responsible or should have some responsibility for all the viewers that have lost money because of FTX? I'm curious
because
what
they
you think.
Promoted it?
Because they promoted it and said, hey, this is a great investment. Put your money into FTX.
Believe it or not, that ties in with one of my articles. It's a political one. Like, what is the line in the sand? What is the expectations of social media?
Right.
Because if you do a disclaimer at the beginning of every show saying we're not financial advisors, right? If they don't want to have to do that, they need to say something like we just jokingly but really did say. You're no expert. I'm no expert. Don't take financial advice. Don't take your money out of the bank because Pancake said take your money out of the bank.
Don't do that, obviously.
Right. I mean, it's...
But also, like... Is it on? We're not. Technically, our podcast falls under gaming just because that's what the main channel is. If you're listening to financial advice from a gamer, right, someone who's labeled as a gamer, you can't take it seriously. But these guys are labeled as, like, their channels are financial influencer, right? So it's actually under finance.
That's different because we have, for people, anytime you watch a commercial on regular TV,
right?
They have to put a disclaimer on there every time. Past performance is no a guarantee of future performance, and this is advice only. Talk to your advisor. That's legally what they're required to do, or they're at risk.
Right.
So I would think the same thing has to be true about social media. If you're claiming to be somebody who's giving some financial expertise,
right,
or an opinion, you should clarify that's opinion. There's no guarantee you're going to make money, just like they have to do with all these commercials. If not, then you should be liable. You can't be telling people to do stuff under the idea that I'm a financial advisor or have a financial background.
They're not advisors. They're just financial influencers. So a lot of these guys get like sponsorships from these cryptocurrencies. I think a lot of it here, this is the real issue, in my opinion, is the fact that a lot of YouTubers who have a viral video call them that. Excuse me. Like let's say I invested in Bitcoin 10 years ago and it blew up and I was right to invest. I become an influencer, and then I start telling people, "Oh, FTX looks good. Crypto whatever looks good." Mm-hmm. You can't really call yourself an expert. Like you have to be. My definition of an expert is someone that's like really high up there and knows people in systems that will get the first-hand knowledge, I guess you could say, from these companies that other people won't get. So that makes them an expert. But you making a lot of money off essentially what's guesses, because that's really all crypto is for the most part, that doesn't really make you an expert. That just makes you someone that did well in a certain area, getting lucky a couple times with probably a few failures along the road.
Even experts have to have a disclaimer. Right. Or they open themselves
I don't know
up
if
to
that files to YouTubers, though. Like Kevin O'Leary, for instance, who was a big sponsor for FTX. Mm-hmm. I think he still took a big hit financially on that. I don't know if it's from the losses or from lawsuits from it, but I don't know if he got off the hook. I didn't follow that whole story, but I'm sure that there's disclaimers that he does because he knows he's a huge person. Like he's a personality. He's got his own TV show, Shark Tank. So I'm sure there's certain disclaimers and checks and balances that are already laid out for him by people that work for him. Whereas an influencer, like a YouTuber, they don't have that. They're just a guy with a camera, just like how I am with video games or how those ASMR artists are. So we don't have that backing.
Right, but I also think, I don't know the law well enough, but there must be some legal ramifications as to the platform. Because you can have experts go on talk shows. They don't have to give a disclaimer. Experts being people that like an O'Leary. They can come on and give I'm out of the stock market now. I don't foresee the stocks going high, blah, 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 blah. If it's in broad strokes like that, I have to believe that they don't have to be held accountable. If somebody says, oh, O'Leary says, the stock market's not going to do well, so I'm going to sell all of my GE stock and now blame him because it's a loss.
Right.
But if he specifically goes on and makes recommendations about particular securities, then I think there might be some sort of, leeway. Or you might cross over into an area where, now you're giving actual advice and now you're exposed. Yeah. Because I see people come on the shows that I listen to, podcasts all the time. They're financial experts, gold, silver, all different types of things, real estate. And they'll come out and talk about the market in general. They don't normally sit there and push a particular stock or a particular, like Kramer pushing SVB. He was getting jammed for that. Because not too long ago, he was telling all his listeners, buy SVB. It's going to be great. Buy it. The stock's going to go through the roof.
Wait, SVB or FTX?
SVB.
Okay.
So the bank.
Just want to make sure you're not messing up FTX.
I specifically meant that.
After last week with mixing FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, we were... Yeah.
But no, so that's an example where I don't know if there's ramifications for him because he is a stock expert.
So for these influencers, I just get because to your... I don't trust a YouTuber, including myself. I don't trust a YouTuber telling me they're without any degree or background in that field, just being a YouTube channel that's a big, like Markiplier is the biggest gaming, probably one of the biggest gaming influencers on YouTube. If he made a video game right now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good video game, right? It's kind of the same thing with these influencers. Just because they back a crypto doesn't mean that just because they have 100 million subscribers that I should invest all my money into this, right? So at what point is it on the influencer and just people that for some reason are expecting this person who just made YouTube videos to know more than them.
See, I feel the social media, YouTube, whatever, it's really buyer beware. And I put it that way because, yes, there is a risk, but I'm a free speech person. I think anybody can go out there and give their opinion on social media. And it's up to the person listening to decide. And if you take that advice, or if you label it misinformation when it's not misinformation, and people don't see it, that's wrong too. You know, I feel like it's an open platform. People could say whatever they want to. If they want to recommend a stock, whatever. Know your source. You're going on YouTube. Now, it could be a phenomenal financial advisor, somebody who never misses, who goes on YouTube and says it.
Caleb Hammer's a good one.
Buyer beware. You know, to me, that's a different platform. Now, they may say, well, no, it's no different than television, and you got to do the disclaimers. This is what we have to come to terms with with social media, because it's growing into something that, you know, what do you make of it? And either it's all or nothing. Are you going to censor certain things that you think is not appropriate? Are you going to force YouTubers, influencers? In this case with financial, what if you have a YouTube influencer medical?
Right.
They come out, and now all of a sudden he can't say or she can't say certain things. I say buyer beware, and anybody going and getting information from an individual from that particular source, I think it has to be taken with a grain of salt. You either know the person or not.
There's some great financial people out there that are on YouTube, like Caleb Hammer, as I just said, who I followed a month ago, I think. He just helps people with their finances that are already there. He's not telling you to invest or anything, but he has the financial background of someone who is an expert in that field. Like, he's got the degrees and everything. A lot of these financial influencers are guys that made a crap ton of money off these Coinbase companies, and then people said, oh, you made a lot of money, I should follow you, given that there's no real degrees and expertise in Bitcoin yet, because it's too new. But I don't know if I would go by someone that just made a lot of money off one coin 5 years ago and then let them make all my financial decisions that way.
And I think it's getting next to impossible, because the social media world is so big. It's getting hard to regulate it. So I kind of throw my hands up and say the opposite. Don't. You're on your own. You can't sue these people. You can't do, you know, and I know people, oh, you can't do that because misinformation. Too bad. Then go to another source and do your research. Don't be stupid enough to, you know, take everybody's word at face value. Right. And I think the minute somebody starts to censor something, that's the minute I say, okay, what's going on here? I don't automatically fall in that boat of, oh, they must be right or wrong, especially when it's social media.
I think the bigger issue for these financial YouTubers is all the ones that backed FTX. I don't know what's worse, having to give back money, which Coffeezilla suggests, or the fact that their credibility is probably just shot. That might be worse.
Well, that's how you weed things out. So you know what? If you're going to take the risk and go out there and promote something, you better be right. Because if you're wrong and people fail, no, we shouldn't have to bail you out legally. But you're a fool if you go back to that person for advice again.
Yeah. So their credibility,
right? Unless he or she gives you a disclaimer about it.
It sounds like Coffeezilla kind of wants both, in the sense of these guys if they made $250,000 off of Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX, they should have to give that money back to the community. That's kind of his argument. The community of people that lost it, which I don't know if that's...
Our own government doesn't do that. Why would we do that?
Fair point.
On an individual basis, you know?
So it just does feel, to his point, to Coffeezilla's
point... As a Christian,
point,
we'd all want to see... Well, personally, I would like to see everything being fair for people. Yeah, that's probably the right thing to do, but it's probably not going to happen, because...
That's just how the world works.
Right.
But to Coffeezilla's point, I think these influencers are... I don't necessarily think that they owe anything to the people, because, again, it's a sponsorship deal most of the time they get money out of it. And let's be honest, I think a lot of us don't know, like, when it comes to being a YouTuber, you don't really know the full background of a company. Of course, you should do your due diligence, but, like, there's stuff you're going to miss, especially in a company that's as big as FTX. And when they have 100,000 sponsorships, I mean, if everyone's doing it, you're not going to go, oh, let me really look into it with 100,000 in. Right. So do I blame the influencers? No. I just hope that, to your point, there's some kind of disclaimer that says, hey, I'm not a financial advice person. I'm just telling you what I did or something.
Well, let me throw this out, too, in light of everything we're saying. You had supposed rocket scientists running SVB.
Yeah.
Harvard grads. I love to say that
Harvard
stuff, right?
grads.
Deutsche Bank and people from Lehman Brothers. All these genius financial people. Nobody's going after them personally, as far as I know, to pay for all the individuals that took their advice. They were a bank. They were responsible for monitoring that portfolio. And whether they were incompetent or they did it on purpose, they all made a lot of money. And that's why some people were following up and saying, similar to what Coffeezilla's saying, why are we bailing them out? Why don't all the hedge funds do lines of credit to these small businesses and they wouldn't have had any problem? Do short-term lines of credit and people wouldn't have run out of money for payroll. But no, they didn't want to do that. They don't want the exposure. So why should the YouTube influencers have to be exposed?
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing anything different.
No,
if
that's
anything,
true.
They're not holding your money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Coffeezilla. If you ever see this, I hope you go after that one rather than the I don't think Kevin O'Leary really. I feel like he got his kick in the face, like the actual slap across the face, I guess you should say, of just getting bitten by FTX. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he needs to do any more in the sense of saving face, but I think to Coffeezilla's point, there is a certain justice system that has to be in place for these financial influencers, right? I don't know if the answer to that is the fact that they have to give their sponsorship deal back to the community. I do think that in this world nowadays, what hurts more is the credibility rather than the money. But I do think that something has to be done. I was just interested in that debate on what your thoughts were on that one.
Well, also, too, if you're telling me that, and I'll use an example, a particular company is sponsoring these YouTubers and they're promoting that stock, okay? You got to... Since the education system in this country stinks and is going downhill, if anything, I hope younger generations are learning from social media. One of the age-old things, like I said, buyer beware, but also look at the source. I mean, that's a knowledge that's even greater than book knowledge.
Absolutely.
Okay? Look at the source. So who funds these people? And if it's the stock that they're pushing, bing. It's like a lot of news shows now we see. Every other commercial is a pharmaceutical company. Bing. This is the last 5 years, let's say. I'm hoping it's waking up a lot of our citizens, global citizens, to sometimes you got to use common sense intelligence of, the huckster's trying to sell you something that he needs money. Okay, the person that makes the product that he's selling and he's telling you got to pause for a minute and say, what are these influencers saying? That's why it's such a huge universe, social media, that you either got to crack down 100% or just let it go, because I don't know how you're going to regulate it. I really don't. Somebody's going to wind up getting screwed.
Well, then I might transition into one more then, a fourth article, which is the U.S. government is once again threatening to ban TikTok. What you should know. So, just to your point.
TikTok. Okay. I'm thinking of Twitter. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
okay.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Too many T's, right?
Yeah.
So they just did what's called the Restriction Act, I believe it was called. I saw they're trying to get this one in, and basically it gets rid of any of these. It's not just TikTok. It's just a bunch of overseas applications that are very commonly used in our country. TikTok happens to be the main one, just because... Excuse me. Just because that quick check's coming back up. Okay. There's a hiccup, a burp, and a fart all together.
I don't get paid enough. Turning this over.
What was I saying? So it's just that China is the biggest organization that owns TikTok. So the way that TikTok works is it's actually owned by a parent company called ByteDance, which I believe is Chinese. Yes. There's an American entity here that runs the American version of TikTok. Now, the question is, because it is Chinese originated, I should say, there's still a connection from the American TikTok to the Chinese TikTok, ByteDance, right? Yes. They're their boss. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're strongly considering finally getting rid of it because of the user data breaches. So at first, it was no TikTok on government phones. Now they're just going to straight up ban it in America. Mm-hmm. India already did it, actually. 200 million users in India just turn it off.
Yeah.
So I don't, the more this is something that's weird to me. And I've been noticing this the last couple of months. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I was thinking about, again, I might be an oracle. I don't know how it works. I was thinking about someone like a celebrity I haven't seen in a long time, just a random person. Not even an hour later in my TikTok feed, I saw that person for the first time in 6 months.
Did you Google them?
Didn't Google them. I was thinking about it upstairs during lunchtime, which was very weird. Now, again, that's probably coincidence, but this has happened
sometimes, but
a couple times in the last 4 months,
I can see
given
if
we
you
have
Googled
talked
it.
about stuff.
If you Googled it.
I didn't even Google it. I was like, oh, wow, maybe based on recommendations and stuff. Now, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I was like, this is a little weird. Someone I haven't seen in 6 months on TikTok, I'm just thinking about casually. I didn't even have my phone. My phone was in the basement, right? And then it popped up. Given it was only once. If I got like 6 in a row.
I think you're an oracle.
I think I am an oracle. There's something. There's something to it. But this is what I mean. Like, there's certain data breaching that maybe it's something. Not that was just one instance, but like other data stuff. Like on stream, we were talking about something, and then the next day, all of my YouTube feed was that thing. Not even looking it up, just talking about it. So there is something to the data usage that even our government uses. Mm-hmm. I don't know if. So let me take it back a step. For the stuff that I talk about and look at, it's usually like gaming videos and whatever.
Yeah.
Like if that's what we're talking about. But what stops a big organization or country from manipulating that? And I think that's the problem. And the only reason that the U.S. really brings this to light is because they know that they can do it, so they know that China's going to do it. If we can do it, China can do it. That's kind of the mentality, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they're going to end up getting rid of TikTok. But this goes back to your influencers of there's too many influencers out there now.
Well, it's that part of it. We've debated the content of TikTok, right? And what the value is.
We won't rehash that one. We'll be here for 4 hours.
The bigger issue has been.
I won that argument, though.
With the bigger issue has been, and I'm not well versed in the security aspect of it, but I know there's an issue. Mm-hmm. And when we say China, we don't mean the Chinese people. We mean the CCP, the Communist Party. You have to make that distinction because there's a big difference. Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know how China works, which if you real fast, think of how big like China is. I forget what it is. It's like there's a billion of our people are in China. So if you had a giant circle, right, of China, in there is this small dot, and that's the China that we think of in the sense of like that's the CCP.
Yeah, well,
it's one entity in the sense they don't even have true control over their entire area because most of them are just farmers. They don't even have electricity most of the time. Do you know that? Well, like they're in paddy fields and stuff.
Well, that's quick history. That's how Mao came into power and murdered millions of Chinese people and gained control of China. And that was back in the 30s and the 40s and 40s. So yes, that's how the Communist Party came in. And there's even some debate as to whether they are the legitimate government of China,
right?
And how they came
because
in,
it's
and how
so
they took it over.
small in comparison to the people. Like if there was a ratio,
that's not how it works, Chris. When you have that many people, you don't need a lot to put the pressure on them. So they own the media,
right? But I mean from the sense of the size.
They own.
Yes, I mean size-wise, it doesn't make sense.
Right, it's a massive.
Yeah.
Massive group of people,
and but I don't even like. Obviously, you could say, well, we have Washington D.C. Yeah, but Washington D.C. actually has roots all over the country, right? In every state, and blah 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 blah.
Right, but let's equate it to something that people also can relate to: slavery. There were more slaves than there were plantation owners, but the plantation owners controlled that.
Right.
You don't need a lot when you have the guns the education. You own every business.
Right. It's just wild to me that China is like 4 times bigger than the United States, and Washington D.C. is like a pebble on that map.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We're
like,
not as low.
The size is insane.
Many people, as many bodies in
well,
our country
I'm trying to
as
say from a scale perspective, it's wild that one small area of China controls that much land. See what I'm saying? Like the people ratio to government is insane.
Okay, but do you understand with everything that's been going on? They've spread out around the world. They control more than just China.
Right. But what I'm saying is
They're
the people.
Into every government.
You're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying that the people themselves in there, most of them don't have any real association to that land, to the main CCP. Because most of them are out in the fields, farmers and stuff that don't even have TVs, let alone.
But that's the catch-22.
Right.
That's why they're kept the way they are, because they're controlled by their government. They don't want
have
them
any.
Educated.
They
don't
trade.
want them
Most of their stuff is still
them,
trading.
Right. Yeah. They're the slave labor.
Yeah, essentially.
They feed the people of that country. They go out into the fields, and that's their as we know from communism, that's their role. Everybody has a role for the good of the country, for the good of the government. So they've taken over everything in that country. That's how communists rule.
Right.
They're probably, and I can't speak, maybe some of the listeners know better, but they're probably more controlling than, say, Putin is of communist Russia.
Probably,
because they've relaxed some of they're still communist, but the people have had more of a say over the last few decades. Having said that, they're crushing people in communist China. Now, there are a handful of elites that do have some influence on the Communist China Party. So you do have that mixed in, and that's kind of come about post-Mao time frame, where that seems to happen in a lot of these communist countries. You still have those individuals, an oligarchy, if you will, that have a lot of money that influence a lot of these communist leaders. So, that's what keeps the money
There's
going.
a lot in Putin as well, like in Russia. Russia's the same thing with the oligarchs.
Yes, a lot of countries. I mean, we have it here too. We know that also in a democracy. So there's a mix over there, and to some extent, the oligarchs keep the CCP kind of in check.
Right.
But back to our original point.
What's interesting though is those powerful people in America you kind of already know about, whereas in Russia they're a lot more hidden, which is kind of surprising.
Yes, yeah. But keep in mind too, communist China, we could take them down in a week.
Oh yeah, they got nothing.
That's the irony here. The number one enemy who say we are an existential threat to them. They have outright said it in their speeches. We need to take down the United States of America. Right. They should no longer be a world power. So they've identified us as their arch enemy. And this has been going on for decades. So it's not like
But I like their furniture, though.
Yes. And they're an ancient culture, an ancient nation. They've been around for a few thousand years. We're young and new. So they have time on their side. So something like a TikTok or whatever, that's just another way that the communist arm
it's an infiltration.
Stretches out. Yeah. And it's another reason why a lot of our politicians, many states ban TikTok from government phones and whatnot.
Yes.
Because it's just one way of saying enough with
and
them
that's a bigger,
it's them
to me that makes
us,
sense,
basically.
because it's more of a big issue in, like, you don't want China having government data, let alone people data, but like,
I am personally tired of being bitch slapped by CCP.
By the CCP, yeah.
Everything we do. They're in our universities. Now they're in our businesses. Finally, somebody put a stop to them buying our farmland.
Right.
Do I really want somebody who says we are the enemy of that country coming in and buying our land?
Right. Yeah.
That provides our food? So I have no problem with them, with us.
I don't have that much. The more I use TikTok, it's a fun place, and I think that there's a lot of great content creators on there. But like, if America made a version of TikTok, everyone would just move over to that one.
Right.
So it's more so no one wants to rework the wheel and have to get their followers back. But listen, the best company right now is one that could basically remake TikTok in an American version. Call it TalkTick or something. Clock.
Right.
So that's what I mean. I'm actually starting to realize that it's probably a better idea to get rid of TikTok.
I think many people, I'm hoping, since the COVID explosion and the realities we've had in our pandemic, I'm hoping a lot of people, especially listeners, are starting to wake up to the fact that why is America so reliant on everybody else, even for something like TikTok? Right. Why isn't it American made? We used to be a country that made things.
Yeah, because we like doing the problem, right? Is that why we have the TikTok America and ByteDance, right? Instead of actually just starting from scratch, having a company do it. And also, a lot of the ones that do try end up failing for some reason. I don't know what causes it. It's probably some paywall or some shit that they try to add later on.
No,
like if you just
because of regulations.
If you just follow the Chinese, literally just follow what they did without the data gathering, I guess. I mean, there has to be some data gathering in the sense of your algorithm, but like to know what to give you, like what content you're interested in. But if someone made a new TikTok for America, it would go so well. You just have to promote it right.
I'm all the time. I'm saying, why isn't somebody just doing that here? We used to
write it down, send it to Uncle.
We used to produce things here, cars and
because we want to take the easier way in the sense of someone already made it. Let's just Americanize it.
Our government started sending all our jobs overseas because America didn't want to be doing the manual labor, right? It's been a cultural shift in our government for years. And now here we sit on the precipice of all the social media and digital information and digital quote-unquote products, right? And we're behind. We have YouTube, for better or worse. We have Twitter. I mean, we did those things.
Well, we have all the main search engines, which is good. Like Google, all that stuff's pretty.
Well, I assume we do, but who knows how much of it is owned by foreign entities. This is what I'm saying. We have to wake up to the fact that it's not. There used to be a commercial. Look for the union label that it was made in the USA. Nothing's made in the USA anymore.
Yeah. Even our cars and stuff aren't.
And then we get screwed when we have something, for instance, like a pandemic, and we realize, wait a minute, we don't make masks.
Well, the biggest problem is the medical.
We don't make medicine.
Right? Medical is the real problem, right? All of our medicine's outsourced, which is why the markup charges is insane.
Right.
And then we go, oh, socialized medicine. When the issue is not the socialization, it's the fact that medicine's just overpriced here because of the markup charges.
Well, and because regulation makes it very hard for us to turn a switch. So it was easier for our government to say, oh, let's let somebody else make these products. India, China, they got the cheap labor. They can produce all these drugs, and we get kickbacks from them, personally. All sounded great down the road, and most Americans are like, I don't care where I get my aspirin from as long as I get my aspirin. But now when you have something like a pandemic and you're finding out you can't get drugs that you need, why not? Well, we don't make it here. And we don't have the facilities.
And now we're getting Ozempic shortages. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Want to move on to one of your articles?
Yes.
Along
the lines of what we were just saying, we talked about this, the fight for anonymity. And I'll throw it out to your listeners, whatever they want to say. Douglas Mackey is also known as Ricky Vaughn. I don't know if you know his name. Ricky Vaughn was very influential Twitter personality in 2016. In 2018, he gets doxxed. Okay? So he falls off of it. He moves to Florida. He gets away from Twitter. Doesn't want to be involved anymore in anything. A lot of his stuff was election related. He was a pro-Trump person, but he did a lot of satire. In 2021, so again, 2018, he's doxxed. He drops off out of Twitter, and he's gone. So he's been out of it. 2021, the Biden administration comes in, and they go after him. They charge him with election interference. He engaged in conspiracy to defraud voters. Not in 2020, back in 2016.
Right.
Okay? So he had some posts where he said, text your vote for Trump or Hillary and put a phone number on there.
Yeah.
Implying that he could text to vote for somebody.
Yeah, true. It's not true. Yeah, you legally can't do that.
Right. He gets charged under a rule that was used for KKK prosecution. Quote, anyone who conspires to deprive someone of their rights. Think about that for a minute. You can prosecute somebody over anyone who conspires to deprive someone of their rights. Okay?
Oh, read it one more time to me.
Anyone who conspires to deprive someone of their rights. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Sounds great for the KKK. Makes sense. They were trying to deprive blacks of their rights. You could prosecute them. Okay? Also, so, for example, if somebody has regrets for being transgender, they can't post that. That would be illegal. You can't post that. COVID information. Can't post anything. They call it misinformation. You're depriving somebody of their rights. So you would be prosecuted for that. Climate change, etc. All of that could now fall under that law. But I also say it should work both ways, right? So if you deprive someone of my right to tell somebody that, let's see.
Right.
I
think basically, you ended up. Well, this is a little off topic because basically he made a joke essentially about texting in votes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's stupidity on the people.
Him on this. They're saying that he deprived people of their rights by telling them to text a vote in.
Well, you're lying to people. Right. They're siding with the stupid. That's really what they're doing. The government's siding with the stupid.
Right. But if you use that ruling, right? If you use that.
I also have to see how legit it looked. Like, did it look like he was trying to manipulate votes is what I mean? Well, you know what I mean?
Here's the thing. You can't text and vote. Anybody who's had a high school education in this country knows that.
But a lot of people don't have a high school education.
No, that's not true. Legally, you're supposed to have a high school education, or at least grammar school education.
It's tough because I have to see the website. Like, if he made this look like the best government website in the world.
He's got like a Trump flag in the background and somebody with a hat. It says "Vote for Hillary." Text to Hillary. When you post the article, you'll see it on there. It's satirical and.
I have to see it.
It's like I'm saying with the YouTube influencers. That's why I say it's a similar article. Buyer beware. I mean, who told you could vote by texting, for gosh sakes? We all know that's a joke. And if somebody doesn't know it, maybe they shouldn't be voting in a regular sense.
That's a weird one because you're right. I mean, if you think that you can text a vote in, you're kind of an idiot. But at the same point,
is what they're
prosecuting him for basically attacking the stupid.
Right. But no, based on that ruling, if a transgender person has regrets and he or she at the time, they post something saying, I have regrets. This was bad. Never should have been done. They can then be prosecuted under anyone who conspires to deprive someone of their rights. That person is conspiring in the same way that they're saying this guy took away somebody's vote. You could say that person is now attacking somebody's transgender rights. It opens up a can of worms that you just, it's literally in that article when they explain it to you if you post it to the site. It's really kind of silly what they're prosecuting him for. If you want to question should he done it or not.
Yeah, that's a weird line because I get your point of like it is ridiculous that they're prosecuting him that and trying to compare one thing to another. At the same time, think of how many people, even if it's a small number, say 300 people fell for that and they were like, I thought I voted. Yeah, they're idiots, but that's still the fact that they didn't vote, even though they were legally able to vote. So that's still votes lost. So you are technically manipulating votes.
Well, no, because everybody gets a ballot. If you're registered to vote,
right? But even if you're an idiot, which again, if you're texting a vote in, you should already. But you still convinced yourself.
Yes.
You still were able to convince someone that they voted even though they didn't. So that is technically manipulation.
I don't think that he's convinced them that they voted.
They thought that
you could do it as a joke.
But the fact that they still did it. Right. Yeah. Even if they're not very smart about knowing, you're still manipulating votes.
So here's an example. Hey, Trump supporters, skip the poll lines and text in your vote. Text votes are legit or vote tomorrow
under
on
a
Super
verified
Wednesday.
account too. Is that a verification?
Kristen Wong. So I guess this person.
No, it's not verification.
I have no idea who this is.
But see, even if it's a joke and someone still falls for it, again, you're an idiot. But two, you're still going out of your way to manipulate a vote, even if that wasn't your intention. Because if I'm someone that's not smart and I go, I can text a vote, and I text my vote in my head, I voted, right? If I didn't vote, if I was told, hey, you didn't vote because you said the text message is not valid, you're still manipulating the vote.
But why would you think, and again, a Christina Wong or whoever posts this guy, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who's registered to vote, you get a ballot in the mail. Nowhere on that ballot does it say, or you could text.
Right,
so
but you're kind of missing what I'm saying.
Source of information.
Right, but
you're
missing my point in the sense. Given with COVID, that might have been you said 2016.
I'm saying what you're saying. So you say 300 make this mistake, or some people just don't know it.
Sure.
Do you know how many things that could fall under that are on the internet between drugs, between comments?
Right, but you're using an election to push that. Like, if it was an election season, they wouldn't care. But if it's in the middle of election season and you're doing, because essentially that's a scam. You're essentially running a scam.
Well, I think it's a joke because
you say joke, but other people will think scam. Well, if you fell for it, it's scam, right?
Some people think the COVID vaccine was bad, and others said that's misinformation, right?
Sure.
How do you, so what does that mean? If somebody says it's bad, am I infringing on somebody's rights and therefore they can prosecute me now because I post something that say it's bad?
Yeah, but again, it's a tough comparison because this is votes. This is votes that you, who are not a government official, are saying you can text a vote, right? If I'm someone that falls for that trap of a vote, and God forbid they went, it's $2 to text your vote in. Yeah. Now they're making money.
Yeah.
Now you have a scam, and now that's a felony.
Yeah,
right, you can't. There's laws behind that.
Well,
even if it is a joke, I think you're still in quite a bit of trouble.
It's hard to believe that this individual, mind you, 3 years later. So obviously it was a hunt after it was politically motivated. They're going after him.
Well, and then
my
next question would be, if other people did this, would they go for them as well?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, you could bring up myriad of very important things. That people did satirical things and it was fine. But now you're selectively going after this individual, and the person in the article is making the case that if you're going to use it for that selectively, What's to stop you from using all these other things if this guy loses?
I think that...
and he's looking at 10 years in prison, by the way.
That's a little ridiculous. But I do think, and I will say that I think it was a very... Again, I'm all for jokes, but I think that was a very bad time to do a joke like that. And because, again, even if 300 people fall for it, which is not a lot, you're still technically manipulating people into thinking that they voted.
Right.
Even if it's on their stupidity.
Well, the quote from the article, the U.S. government is now in the business of deciding what's a lie or what's satire. As the First Amendment scholar, so there is no
but see, that's where it gets a little weird, though, because again, satire would be like if I was like as we saw with Tony Hinchcliffe today, making fun of what's her name, the blind deaf lady,
Helen Keller.
Thank you, Helen Keller. Yes, that to me is satire. Doing a joke like that in the middle of an election, saying you could text a vote here, that to me is a scam.
Okay, but under this new interpretation, in an effort to get... Okay, so if you share statistics about trans surgery regret or COVID or climate change, for example, in an effort to get a local school to disinvite a public speaker, and law enforcement decided that you lied or knowingly spread false information in order to provide someone of their rights, you could be charged under the new interpretation of this law.
I would say I agree with that, but the question is, where's the line?
Right. And he's saying,
because if I said, oh, that person's a terrorist who's going to my son's school tomorrow,
right,
that I think should be illegal. You should not be able to say there's a terrorist going to my son's school and giving a speech when that person's not a terrorist. Right?
That would be slander.
Slander, satire, whatever.
Right. Now, I don't think it's the government's responsibility to prosecute. It's up to that individual to turn around and say, you just slandered me, and he or she prosecutes.
That's true.
The government should not be involved, and that's his point. The government should not be in a position to decide who's lying and who's telling the truth.
But the only difference is swaying votes are government.
But we don't even know if this even swayed a single vote.
Even if it's one, you're still attempting to manipulate, even if it's a joke.
Well,
do you see? Because again, if it was like a terrorist thing or whatever, that's not going to affect government. Then yeah, that to me is just satire. But when you're trying to manipulate people's voting by saying, "Hey, text and call here,"
so maybe the reality is it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, not 10 years in prison or fine.
Why didn't you put a disclaimer on this Twitter if it bothered you that much? Because God knows you have disclaimers coming out your ass for everything else.
But wouldn't that fall under vote tampering? Like, what was the actual charge?
It was that U.S. blah, 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 and this was the charge.
What's this?
18 U.S.C. 241, a 100-year-old law written to prosecute KKK. It is also not limited to elections. It extends to anyone who conspires to deprive someone of their rights.
Right, because voting's a right. Voting is a right for an American citizen.
Right, you deprive someone. I mean, again, technically, he didn't deprive anything of anyone. If they were too stupid to understand that you can't text a vote.
Well, no, I would say that he did.
Mail.
I would say that is.
I don't think he did.
Even if it's a joke, you're still
take away their rights.
Yeah, but you're still no, but you're manipulating their rights because you're tricking them into thinking that they could text a vote, even if you know it's a joke. See, the issue here is you're too smart for it. You know that you're not going to fall for something as silly as that, but a lot of people will. That's the problem.
I guess what
older
I have
people.
A problem is if you want to say that it's okay, the way he did was a misdemeanor. I mean, I don't think it clarifies. I don't think it's on par with the KKK. I don't think it's on par with a lot
what
of
he
other
should have
people
done,
that put out information that people died.
What he should have done
right?
is, like, say he put that vote out, that thing out for a week. A week later, he should have said, "Sorry, this was a joke. Go out and vote." That's what he should have done. If he kept this up the whole time,
I don't know if he did. I don't know.
Hopefully he did, but I would actually agree that is technically vote tampering.
I don't see it that way, but if you want to do it as like a misdemeanor or whatever. No,
yeah, it's not 10 years.
They're going full charge, and they're doing it for a reason. Because if he loses this case, you have just allowed the federal government to go after any person that deprives, say, a speaker from speaking somewhere. But it's going to wind up being selective. It's going to be for people that say some things that the government agrees with versus they won't prosecute people who don't agree with the government.
So that's interesting because this is where it gets a little weird, right? So if you are caught for actual vote tampering, it's only up to 5 years. So I don't know what he's getting 10 for.
That's this USC 251.
That is weird. Oh, see, this one is USC 52, 20511.
Remember, this used to go after the KKK.
I know, yeah.
So 10 years makes sense.
Again, to your point, it does seem like a crazy sentence for this.
Malicious prosecution.
Yeah, I would agree.
5 years later, the guy was off the grid, wasn't involved anymore, and they retroactively went back and prosecuted this person, right? Mm-hmm. By today's standards, there probably would have been a forced disclaimer by Twitter saying this is election misinformation.
I would agree. Well, Twitter wouldn't have that anymore because Elon's in charge.
Right, but I'm saying that probably would have happened in 2021 or before he did what he did. But yeah, so we go back to there has to be a limit, and it's getting ridiculous, and it's going to be selective. That's why if you're gonna hit the guy with something, give him a misdemeanor or something. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And it's not about him. It's just he embarrassed them. Yeah. I get it. This is to go deeper.
See, to sum this one up, just because we've already done 20 minutes on this one, I would say, and you can give your final thought. Mm-hmm. I would say that what he did was definitely wrong, but it's not worth the 10 years in prison. Like I don't even think. If anything, it's a fine, a hefty fine. But 10 years in prison when actual vote tampering is 5. Yep. That doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know your final thoughts.
No, I mean that's I see what you're saying. I could see. I don't know enough of his posts to understand how bad they were or whatever. Just based on this one, I still stand by buyer beware. If you're gonna base your elections on or you're voting on somebody who posts stuff, it's not even him who posted this. This woman reposted, I guess. So anyhow, it's a case to watch. Not so much about the implications of this particular one, but why is it so important to them after the fact? Usually there's a bigger issue.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. So one of my last ones is Mark Zuckerberg did his second round of layoffs, and now he's getting some huge kickbacks. Facebook is kind of falling apart. I won't lie to you. So Mark Zuckerberg just...
Facebook or
Meta.
Yeah, because
Meta.
I don't think Meta.
Yeah, but it's all falling apart. Let's be honest. Everything about that company is just either pissing money or pissing away employees. He just laid off 10,000 more employees. First off, I didn't even know there were that many employees. I don't even remember what the first one was, the first layoff. So they just reallocated a lot of them from Meta because Meta was not doing well. He canceled that project, revamped that project, so now it's not the same thing as before. Right. It's not Google, it's not the metaverse. It's like working on AI chatbots now rather than anything else, and then the rest is going to be set up for the future. Right. But they're talking about the morale of Facebook. It's not looking good. Yeah. Like now they're starting to have walkouts. Some big board members are like, "Hey, I don't know if I can keep working here." Like it's all. They're trying to do more remote work so that people are more happy at home than going to an office. Yeah. So it's just it's tough to watch this because we knew the answer to fix this a year ago was, hey, stop with Metaverse. It's not working. And then he doubled down and now he has to fire everyone. After media said how bad these firings were that Elon did. Yeah. And then Mark does way worse and then they don't even talk about it. So, I know, isn't that crazy? Yeah. It's like, oh, well. But that's just a short one. I thought that was kind of a return of what we said before. Last episode. Right, we talked about Twitter, I think, or Facebook, Meta. I don't even remember. That might have been 2 ago.
Meta comes up every once in a while.
Yeah. I had to think of which one it was.
He was on there, made a couple stories, and then that died a little bit. He was trying to churn it out.
Yeah. So I'm really curious to see what happens to Facebook in the next year. I think it's like Meta's they'll stay afloat. I just don't know what they're going to be able to do that will revolutionize it. Their chatbot's not going to do well. Even if they make a great chatbot, it's not going to do well.
I don't know. What are all those, middle-aged men and women going to do if you take Facebook away? How are they going to post their
I don't know.
Failed dates last week?
I don't know. Like Facebook gaming is failing. Facebook everything is failing. Snapchat's failing too. Snapchat's not doing too well.
I don't know Snapchat. I don't use any of these things.
Snapchat is the only thing that Kenny uses. And none of my friends use it anymore. Like no one.
Well, he
no
must
one
use it
uses
with somebody else. Like his friends
Kenny's friend group, I guess, uses
maybe
Snapchat.
some
But
of them use it.
I ask my friends all the time. I'm like, are you guys still use? Let me put it this way: anyone over 25 isn't really using Snapchat anymore.
Well, and also, is it a girl thing? Because Kenny has
not as much. I would say that there's a lot of. What the hell are you trying to say, Mom? Even my female friends don't even use Snapchat anymore. No one posts on it. So I was like, oh. I did see, I saw
Isn't Snapchat the thing that only lasts for a few seconds?
Yeah, it's one picture and it lasted for 10 years. But I was actually a beta tester back in high school. A little fun fact for everyone.
Fun fact for painting.
What was I saying?
With them.
Another one. So what was interesting on TikTok, right? Data usage. Little short story. I saw for St. Patrick's Day, I saw a semi-viral video of Scranton University, which for those of you who don't know, I graduated from. And I remember it was funny because they have something now called the Ginger Run, where basically all the redheads run up for St. Patrick's Day. But it shows it's
I'm thinking of Cartman.
It's what was funny though, Mom, was based on it's looking down at the school and it's right where the Gonzaga house was and stuff. Instantly all the memories came back. It was weird. I had like all these flashbacks of walking up with friends.
Your book just came in the mail.
I know, yeah. It was funny to see. I was like, wow, 6 years have gone by and I haven't been there. But I don't plan on going there.
Well, they have our university on the Verizon commercial with.
Oh, do they?
Well,
I just never thought I'd see Scranton again.
And your dad, we both went to the same school. He's like, that's not the hall that we graduated.
Everyone in our family went to Fordham.
They just took the tower off. It's the hall.
So hold on, the Fordham legacy. Papa.
Oh, jeez.
Grandma. No, Grandma didn't go. You.
Well, your grandmother did. My mother did.
Yeah. Okay. So my dad's dad, my mom's mom, all my dad's siblings.
My father.
Your father.
My uncle.
Right.
Dad's uncle.
Uncle Ray.
Well, Dad's uncle too. If you want to do that.
Dad's
generation.
uncle. Oh, you want to keep going? Basically, we owned Fordham, and then Papa was.
I wouldn't say that.
And then Papa was.
Back in the old days when it was a different school.
And then I said Scranton.
No comment. No comment. I still say I graduated
Sponsor
from the
us,
School
Fordham.
of Business Administration. I refuse to use that investor's name. I didn't go to school then. I didn't get that degree. So.
I didn't even know which investor that is.
Gabelli. It's now called the Gabelli School of Business or something like that. Oh. So they changed everybody. I said that to your grandmother. She goes, "No, I'm not." She's never even heard of it.
You know what's funny? My friend was just telling me at the gym that he was going for a new job, and he graduated many years ago at a school that got merged with another school. So when they did his background check, they were like, "This is a made-up college." So he had to go. How annoying is that? They couldn't find the college. He's like, well, yeah, because it merged with this college. Yeah. Just look at it says it, like right on there.
Well, the arrogance of telling somebody like my mother, for instance, in her generation, we're going to change the name of the school you graduated from.
Yeah,
because
back when a college degree was,
gave money to the school. What, you bought everybody's degree name to? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's
or you reissue them maybe, but that's got to be such a pain. Yeah, they're not doing that.
No, and I'm assuming the standards are different. Maybe they're better, maybe they're worse. I don't know. But you put a name on a degree. That's from the person when it was that school on. You don't retroactively change the name. So anyhow,
you got one?
I did a South Park one. So South Park was co-written by ChatGPT. That was the one.
Oh, okay, yeah. So let's go back for a second. So first off, TikTok. My entire TikTok feed, and I think of a lot of other feeds, are basically South Park. I only get South Park stuff now. There was an episode that they did recently about ChatGPT and how they're all texting their girlfriends like answers through ChatGPT because they don't want to talk to them. Okay. So I didn't know this, but your article stated, you can continue from there.
They ended with a script that was generated by ChatGPT.
Right.
So part of the comment was, we can't blame people, the principal, or I guess Mr. whatever his name
PC principal?
Teacher. No, it wasn't him.
Mr. Mackey?
I guess it was the
one that goes, okay.
He says to Stan, I guess. He's mad at him for using it. And Stan says, we can't blame people for using ChatGPT. Giant tech companies who took OpenAI, packaged it, monetized it, and pushed it out as soon as possible to everybody. That's who you blame. If everyone cannot use it and control it, corporations will, at unfair advantage to people like, Cartman. Because Cartman goes and he abuses it, tries to do a whole speech, I think a paper on it.
Yeah.
And
they all get their reports back.
Yeah.
And it's all
and it's robotic.
Yeah, it's like stuff that they didn't write. It's like colonization of they're in third grade.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just thought this funny because we were just talking about that recently, and you showed me a portion of that where Cartman was, I guess it was Cartman was saying, Stan, how come you always have these great messages to your girlfriend? He goes, well, I use ChatGPT.
I use ChatGPT.
Yeah. And so I guess the rest of the show he goes and he does his paper. But I think, the writers make a very good point. Everyone's blaming ChatGPT, but guess what? The reason we were saying that on the podcast, right? Everybody's going to use it. What's the value of it? You said that's not really what it's meant for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Stan's saying. Hey, all these tech companies, they're trying to make money off of it. They're pushing it out.
Yeah.
And they want to do it so everybody has it as soon as possible because they make money doing it. So you can't blame the average person if they're going to use it. You're paying for it. It's a service. So, before anybody else corrupts it. So, anyhow, I just thought that was kind of funny. So we were just talking about it, and I wanted to throw that in the mix.
So, the last one I have is actually kind of an interesting one. The death of the Google glasses. Do you remember the Google glasses?
Google glasses.
So Google used to have the glasses that was supposed to be the AI system.
Oh.
This article is a little misleading, but basically what it's about is the Google glasses never took off. They were crazy expensive. And it was basically like the idea.
VR type stuff?
So no, these you can actually use in person.
Reading glasses?
These. You never saw these?
No.
Oh yeah, people. It's like a little monitor, so you can stick it to your phone, and it would use eye tracking, so that you can do stuff with it. So one of the.
I kind of remember.
So we actually use this. I think I can talk about this now because I think the NDA is over. But we were working with Google on Google glasses.
Well, don't guess if you get.
I'm pretty sure, but I'm good. So we were basically doing AI training with these. So we had a partnership with Google, and basically what we were doing was we were able to use those Google glasses to look underground and see the piping for mapping.
Oh, neat.
So when we were working on a company at the beginning, right before COVID, you can literally, I'm not even exaggerating, it had AI mapping of the pipes underneath the city. Mm-hmm. And with those Google glasses, it was like X-ray vision. So you can see it, and that's how you would know where the water lines were.
Okay.
Now, these never took off to the public. That's what they're saying. The Google glasses, I've seen the new ones that aren't open to the public yet. Mm-hmm. They're a lot better than this like weird Tron thing. Yeah, that's so weird. They're actually built into the glass itself now that we have within the last 2 years we've developed panels that actually fit in glasses, in the glass. So that's what they're going to start using now.
Oh, meaning fit in regular glasses.
Yeah, you can't even tell. It just has this little notch here, but it's off the side. So it's it's off the band. Okay. And you can't even tell that they're Google glasses except for the two parts right on the side there, that little hook thing. I've never tried them. I've only seen the mock-ups and the prototypes for them. They're way better, but they're way more expensive than these. And if those didn't take off, then they're not going to take off to the public. So it's not exactly that the Google glasses are dead. It's just they're not going to be open to the public. They're more so used for AI training. Yeah. And just the cool futuristic stuff that we see in movies, but it's not going to be open to the public till the price goes down. Product. You don't need it. Most people, you need that for your phone? What else are you going to use it for? Right.
Well, and soon Uncle Jerry could have used it to find their PVC pipes under their pool, so they wouldn't have to break the concrete.
The problem is the software for it was $10 million in licensing.
Yeah, they weren't going to do that.
Yeah, because you have to pay for the licensing fees.
Yeah.
For to use the softwares, because you have to buy the mapping from the town.
So who were they marketing it to in the beginning?
It was for, we were trying to use it for AI, we were training AIs, AI stuff before we had all this ChatGPT. So I could tell you after what we used it for, but basically it was the same idea as we just want people in the field can see the glasses, but see the piping through the glasses. Yeah. Right. The problem was with how expensive they were to give workers in the field these stupid expensive glasses and then them leaving it or breaking it. It just wasn't worth it. So it would have been a very nice tool, but that was really all it was for. That's the problem with the Google glasses.
It's not cost effective. Not yet.
For what they made it for, it was check your notification. It was basically you got a notification, check your phone. Yeah. So that's why they never really took off. I think they will take off in the future. The new prototypes are really cool, But I mean, if that was $1,500, the original, I mean, the new ones are probably closer to $5,000, I would say.
Yeah, it's
so
like
you have to wait for the price to
right?
go down.
Eventually, if it becomes more, they streamline the process. And
Now I think it's only used for AI projects. Like I don't think they use it for anything else except for that.
And they have to outsource it to China.
Yeah. Yeah, they outsource it to China
because they won't make the chip.
Yeah.
Back to that again.
All right, what's yours? You had one last one, I believe?
I had one last one, but I think it's up to you. I know it might be a little bit too heady and too long. It's the briefly talked about it's a constitutional thing, right? From the last election, they had the debate. Could the vice president stop the election when people thought there was fraud, or did he not have that right? And it kept going back and forth and back and forth. Do you want me to go into that one, or would you?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So they're talking about Pence, right?
Yeah.
Okay, give me the gist to this one, because that might be one that even YouTube now will.
The parliamentary motive behind the January 6th insurrection.
Oh, okay. We can do that one. We'll split it up so that one's on Spotify.
Well, there was lots of questions debate over what the vice president could and could do in certifying that election under the terms of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. This person did some research and they did the timeline, and the gist of their article is: forget about the J6, the details, the what went on outside, blah 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 blah. They came back, okay?
I want you to know this is tough to keep up with.
Really?
Okay. Well, because I got a call, and then I was like, so give me bullet point timeline real fast, because. So
they all met on January 6th in the House of Representatives. The vice president certifies all the electoral votes that come in from all the states. Okay. At that time, 2 House representatives, I believe one was Ted Cruz, somebody else, they said, no, we want a motion on the floor, we want to vote, we want to delay this because there's too much fraud that's been alleged, okay? 3 minutes after that happened, and those 2 individuals said, we make a motion that this needs to be delayed and you cannot certify it. What was supposed to happen is the House was supposed to vote on that. 3 minutes later, they never voted on it. The Capitol Police informed the chamber that we have to get you guys out because there's a breach and people might be coming in, an insurrection, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Once you took those main people out, meaning the vice president, the Speaker of the House, Schumer, Mitch McConnell.
So essentially you're saying, just to make sure, in between the actual certification and the people coming in for Jan 6th, there was a problem. Because of that, it technically nullifies the...
What happens once you escort those main leaders out under the Constitution, the session ends.
Right. You can't continue the session.
When they came back in later, it was under an emergency session, meaning it has to be expedited.
And they didn't expedite it?
No, they did.
Okay.
At that point, the vice president could not hold the certification. Why? Because those 2 votes, they don't carry over. It ended in the last session.
Right, so it's a technicality, right? It's a technicality that, but what do you? Here's the problem with that, right? Now we're past that point. It's one of those flukes, right? And what I mean by that is, it's a once in a history moment of our country, right?
Well, this by definition, this is a coup.
Right. So, but what do you change?
If it was intentionally done, it's a coup. Well, all those people that were involved, whoever they were, that's treason. That's a killing offense in our country. If you're still a hanging offense,
I'm still a little confused by the. It's more so like a timing issue, right?
It's
like if this happened when there wasn't a situation of January 6th,
but we
wouldn't be talking about it, right?
What came first, the chicken or the eggs? And now with everything coming out on J6, right? We're learning from these videos. What kind of insurrection was this?
Right, that's a
There's
topic.
Big question mark now.
Yeah.
Now you couple that with the fact of what happened that day. Why was there an insurrection? What were these people? Because they were told and Trump, blah, blah, blah. Well, we know that's not true. So as the story is unraveling about just how bad it was, you overlay that with what was going on the day of the January 6th riot. And why did it matter? The whole point, like everything else, conspiracy theories. Well, a lot of these conspiracy theories, after the fact, are starting to make sense. And when you look at it from this, because so many people, and I was confused, some scholars were saying he had no right to do it, Vice President. He couldn't decertify.
Right.
And others were saying, but he could, because those 2 motions were on the table.
Yeah. Yes.
By the Constitution. Remember, we live and die by our Constitution, right? That's what our country's about. The rules of the Constitution says the first session, yes, he had every right and responsibility to hold off certifying that election until the fraud was investigated. Oh, but guess what happened? There was an insurrection.
My big thing is, if this is true, like say this theory is correct, props to whoever came up with all that. That's a wild.
No, this guy is we don't.
Whoever
exactly
was able to put all those moving parts together like that, whether it be 1 or 10 people, that would be pretty hard to pull off.
You know what? It's not that hard to pull off. And a matter of fact, he's looking at it from the point of view, forget about the noise. Look at the substance. What was the goal that day? The goal was to certify our election.
Right.
And we knew that some people thought there was a lot of fraud. Some people were denying it, right?
Right.
There was a process in place, and something very unusual happened. There was an insurrection at the House of Representatives. Okay? That's not a common thing that happens in our country at an election. So that's why a lot of people were like, well, the vice president had the right. No, he didn't. You know, that's when you really got to get down to the nitty-gritty of our Constitution and what it says. And it is pretty clear about what he can and cannot do. What wasn't clear was the unusual situation 3 minutes after these two people voted, and we knew they were going to do it that day. We knew that some congressmen said, I'm going to vote to stop the certification. There's too much fraud here or too many questions. Okay? 3 minutes after that, all of a sudden, these things come into play. A very unusual situation we've never had before.
Yeah,
and guess what? Just by doing that, you come back and now there's no more motion that anybody has to vote on because you ended the last session. How convenient.
Yeah. All right, we'll let that one bake. That's a good one to end it on.
We'll see if more comes out of that one down the road.
I guess I'll leave that in the YouTube version. We'll see what happens. Technically, our strike's up, so we're good for. We're good for one.
Roll the dice. See what happens.
Roll the dice. Thanks, Google.
Yeah.
So the only things I have to promote. So I got it this time.
Oh yeah. Did you clean up
so this week was basically. So this week was police contraband police and Wulong, I believe. No. This week was just the police one. I didn't put out a video on Friday because of my timing. So tomorrow is the Dead Space speed run. This comes out Monday, Tuesday on Spotify, and then that's pretty much it. So we'll end it there. I think that's pretty much it. So social media down below, promo codes down below, other stream links down below, and we'll see you guys next week for number 38.